Hi, you fives. Coming to the end of term, coming to the end of Gangsta Granny. So I'm going to read you 3 chapters today and 3 chapters tomorrow. And Mrs. Wine's going to do another 3, and then hopefully we'll get finished by the beginning of the next week. Hope you enjoy. Chapter 23. Caught by the Fuzz. They whirred through the town, Granny driving, Ben clinging on behind her, both in wetsuits and diving masks, with Granny's handbag wrapped in miles of cling film sitting in the basket at the front. Granny spotted Raj closing up his newsagent's shop. "Hello, Raj, dear. Don't forget to save me some Murray mints for Monday," she shouted. Raj looked at the two of them, open-mouthed, in shock. "I don't know what's got into him. He's normally so chatty." It was a long way to London, especially on a motorised scooter with a top speed of 3 miles per hour, with 2 passengers. After a while, Ben noticed the roads getting wider and wider. 2 lanes, then 3 lanes. "Bottoms, we are on the motorway," shouted Ben from the back as 10 lorries whooshed past, nearly wrenching the scooter off the road with the force of their slipstream. "You know, you really shouldn't swear, young man," said Granny. "Now, I'm going to step on it, so hold on tight." A moment later, a particularly big petrol tanker thundered past, inches from their heads, beeping its horn. "Big, hairy Bottom," said Granny. "Granny!" said Ben, shocked. "Whoops, that one just slipped out," said Granny. "Grown-ups never lead by example." "I'm sorry, Granny, but I'm not sure the thing is built for a motorway," said Ben. Just then, an even bigger lorry blasted past. Ben could feel the wheels of the scooter lift off the road for a second as the slipstream dragged it in the lorry's wake. "I'll take the next exit," said Granny. But before she could, flashing blue lights began to spin behind them. "Oh no, it's the Fuzz. Let's see if I can outrun them." She slammed her foot on the accelerator, and the scooter leapt from 3 miles per hour to 3.5 miles per hour. The police car drove alongside them, and the police officer inside gestured angrily for them to pull over. "Granny, you'd better pull over," said Ben. "We're done for." "Let me handle this, boy." Granny stopped the mobility scooter on the hard shoulder as the police car parked in front of them, blocking any chance of escape. It was a big car and dwarfed the scooter like a very tall person dwarfs, well, a dwarf. "Is this your vehicle, madam?" said the police officer. He was fat and had a small moustache, which made his fat face look even fatter. He also had a smug expression on his face that suggested telling people off was his favourite thing in the world. Or maybe second favourite, after donuts. His name tag said that he was called PC Fudge. "Is there a problem, officer?" said Granny innocently, her diving mask a little steamed up from all the excitement. "Yes, there is a problem. The use of motorised mobility scooters on motorways is strictly prohibited," said the police officer in a patronising tone. "Other modes of transport not permitted on a motorway are skateboard, canoe, roller skates, donkey, shopping trolley, unicycle, sledge, rickshaw, camel, magic carpet, comedy ostrich." "Well, thank you so much for pointing that out, officer. Well, remember that for next time. Now, if you'll excuse us, we are running a little late. Goodbye," said Granny cheerily as she restarted the mobility scooter. "Have you been drinking, madam?" "I had some cabbage soup before I came out." "Alcohol, I mean," he sighed. "I had a brandy liqueur chocolate on Tuesday night. Does that count?" Ben couldn't help but chuckle. PC Fudge's eyes narrowed. "Then would you care to explain to me why you are dressed in scuba diving gear with your handbag wrapped in cling film?" This was going to take some explaining. Because, Granny was stumbling over her words. They were done for. "Because we are from the Cling Film Appreciation Society," said Ben with authority. "I've never heard of that," said PC Fudge, dismissively. "We are very new," said Ben. "Just 2 members so far," added Granny, continuing the lie. "And we like to keep the society low-key, so we have our meetings underwater, hence the wetsuits." The policeman looked baffled. Granny didn't stop talking, apparently in the hope that she might baffle him further. Now, if you'll excuse us, we are in a rather a hurry. We have to get to London for an important meeting with the Bubble Wrap Association. We are thinking of merging the two organisations. PC Fudge was all but lost for words. How many members have they got? Just one, said Granny. But if we join forces, we can save money on tea bags, photocopying, paper clips, and the like. Goodbye. Granny put her foot down on the accelerator and the mobility scooter lurched off. Stop right there, said PC Fudge, holding his podgy hand out straight in front of him. Ben froze in terror. He wasn't even 12 yet, and he was going to spend the rest of his life in jail. PC Fudge leaned over and put his face next to Granny's. I'll give you a lift. Chapter 24. Dark Waters. Just here, please, said Granny, directing from the back seat of the police car. Just opposite the tower. Thank you so much. PC Fudge strained as he unloaded the scooter out of his boot. Well, next time, please remember that mobility scooters are meant only for pavements, not main roads, and certainly not motorways. Yes, officer, replied Granny with a smile. Well, good luck you two with the whole clean field bubble wrap alliance thing. And with that, PC Fudge sped off into the night, leaving Granny and Ben gazing at the magnificent 1,000-year-old Tower of London on the opposite bank of the river. It was particularly spectacular at night, its 4 domed towers lit up, its reflection shimmering on the cold, dark River Thames below. The tower was once a prison, with an illustrious list of former inmates, including the future Queen Elizabeth I, the adventurer Sir Walter Raleigh, the terrorist Guy Fawkes, the senior Nazi Rudolf Hess. Now, though the tower is a museum and home to the priceless crown jewels, housed in their own special building, the Jewel House, the unlikely pair of gangsters stood at the riverbank. Are you ready? Asked Granny, her mask completely steamed up from sitting in the back of a police car for over an hour. Yes, said Ben, trembling with excitement. I'm ready. Granny reached out to hold Ben's hand, and then she counted. 3, 2, 1. They leapt into the dark waters below. The water was freezing cold, even with the wetsuits on, and for a moment all Ben could see was black. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. When their heads bobbed out of the water, Ben took the snorkel out of his mouth for a moment. Are you okay, Granny? I've never felt more alive. They doggy paddled across the river. Ben had never been a great swimmer and lagged behind a little. Secretly, he wished he had brought his armband, or at least a lilo. A huge party cruiser with music blaring and young people shouting chugged down the river. Granny had swum ahead, and Ben had lost sight of her. Oh no! Had she been crushed by the cruiser? Was Granny in a watery grave at the bottom of the Thames? Come on, slow coach, shouted Granny as the party boat passed and they caught sight of each other again. Ben sighed with relief and continued doggy paddling across the deep, dark, dirty water. According to the diagram in Plumbing Weekly, the sewage pipe was situated just to the left of Traitor's Gate. This was an entrance to the tower, only accessible from the river, where many prisoners would be taken to be locked up for the rest of their lives or even beheaded. Nowadays, Traitor's Gate had been bricked up, so the pipe was the only way into the tower from the river. Then, with a rush of relief, Ben found the pipe. It was partially submerged under the water. It was dark and eerie, and he could hear the echoes of lapping waves reverberating inside it. Suddenly, Ben began to have second thoughts about the whole adventure. As much as he liked plumbing, he didn't want to have to crawl up an ancient sewage pipe. Come on, Ben, said Granny, as she bobbed up and down in the water. We haven't come this far to give up now. Well, thought Ben, if a little old lady can do it, then I certainly can. Ben took a deep breath and propelled himself into the pipe. Granny followed close behind. It was blacker than black in there, and after he travelled a few metres, he could feel something crawling across his head. He heard an eek-eek noise and could sense something scratching his scalp. It felt like claws. He put his hand on his head. He touched something big and furry. Then he realised the awful truth. It was a rat! A giant rat was clinging to the top of his head. Ah! Screamed Ben. Chapter 25. Haunted by Ghosts. The sound of Ben's screams echoed through the length of the pipe. He whacked the rat off with his head, and it landed on top of Granny, who was crawling up the pipe just behind him. "Poor little rat," she said. "Be gentle with it, dear." But he was here